So there's something pretty amazing going on in college football right now. Just last weekend, Dabo Swinney, the head coach of Clemson, did a press conference. In that press conference, he blasted Ole Miss for what we refer to in college football as tampering. What that would mean is Ole Miss approached one of the players contracted with NIL under Clemson and approached him while he was under contract to offer him more money and inevitably poach him from Clemson University. And that's exactly what happened. This player and his agent, even though they were already under contract with Clemson, went to Swinney and basically said, we're transferring to Ole Miss. As they were going, they talked to the agent. The agent said, actually, yes, I have evidence of Ole Miss tampering with this player, and I will share it with you. Dabo Swinney was like, great, I would love to have those text messages, be able to have Ole Miss penalized for their behavior. The agent says, I will do that if you will match Ole Miss's offer. If not, the kid's going to Ole Miss and you will not get this evidence. Dabo Swinney was basically like, well, okay, good luck to the player, good luck to the agent. We're not going to match the offer. The really sad thing is that's happening at every university across college football. It's the Wild West. The players are getting paid, getting revenue for their likeness and image, and the multi-billion-dollar industry that is college football. It's nice that players are finally able to get a cut, but it's the Wild West and it's really unregulated. Agents are going to rosters and poaching players from one roster to get them a higher pay at another roster, and therefore the agents are getting paid. There's no governing committee looking over this and keeping these players from doing that. And here's Dabo Swinney stating at a press conference on a Saturday, talking about this is what Ole Miss did. This is how they're breaking the rules. This is the state of college football. Even when I work hard 365 days a year to keep my players, even when I have that NIL deal signed, other teams will come to my players and they will offer them more money and they will break their contracts with me. This school that has broken the rules will inevitably get this player and will not be penalized for it. Now, in the world of all that matters is you win, like that's all that matters, win. Sure, that makes a lot of sense, but Dabo Swinney does things differently, and I've kind of rolled my eyes at some of the things that he's done. He was very against the transfer portal. Okay, Dabo, people can transfer in. People have been transferring in forever. They had to sit out a year in the past, and now they don't have to, kind of hold firm to, I'm not doing a transfer portal. It just felt a little archaic and slow to get with the times. But I think he's right on this one. And what's interesting is Dabo said something very important. He said, I talk with other coaches at other programs all the time, and they're all complaining about this idea. They're all saying the same thing. We are having our players poached. So why is Dabo the only one who's having a press conference on a random Saturday in January to talk about it? Well, it's because Ole Miss poached his player. Yeah, but all the other coaches are saying, our players are getting poached as well. Teams are approaching our players under NIL contract with us and stealing them from us. So why is Dabo alone? Well, it would have to be because Dabo might be the only Division I football coach in the country who is not doing it himself. I'm not a Clemson fan. I'm not a Dabo Swinney fan per se. The coach of my favorite team, I'm pretty confident, is probably aware of poaching going on while people talk to other programs and try to bring players to his program. So I'm not going to sit on a high horse and say that my coach has it right and other people don't. My coach can't go to the mic and say, this team poached this player for me, because he's guilty of doing it himself. And truthfully, with the way Dabo's carried himself, and in some cases shot himself in the foot, his program held his program back because he wasn't going to compromise his integrity on whatever it may be, might mean that Dabo's the only person who can go to a mic and talk about this, because there's not a person who can come and say, yeah, but Dabo, you did it too. And I feel like this is so important for the things that I like talking to athletes about. Integrity isn't spoken about much anymore, especially when it comes to performance. Integrity is something that it's good to have, it's noble, but it's not taught about how integrity can actually help your performance. And so, as I think about Dabo and I think about him standing alone on this island, we might look back in 10 years when the college football landscape is different and maybe there is a governing agency and this tampering is really cracked down on like it is in the NFL. We might point back to say, well, Dabo Swinney, he was the man who got the ball on. This is the guy whose voice that really saved college football, because what's going on in this era is not sustainable. It's going to ruin the sport. It's going to change it fundamentally forever. But one man with integrity who can come to a mic and say the hard thing, who, because of his integrity, doesn't have skeletons in his own closet, he might be the only person who can save this. And honestly, if that's part of his legacy, then like good on Dabo, because it might cost him his job. Clemson underperformed this year. Clemson was, before NIL, one of the top programs in the nation. It was the only program that felt like it could consistently beat Nick Saban. Dabo Swinney was running on all cylinders. Dabo Swinney was like the heir apparent to Nick Saban's Alabama throne when he hung it up. But because of NIL and how Dabo has stuck to his guns on certain things and chooses not to play dirty, Clemson has struggled. Clemson has fallen back a step. Even though it may cost him his job, his integrity might be the only thing that helps college football move forward, because there's a voice that can have those hard conversations without being a hypocrite. I think often about how coaches are put into situations with their teams, be it high school, be it Little League, be it Pop Warner football, about having to make the hard decision. A player getting in trouble, doing the wrong thing, a player not showing up for practice, a player not putting forth effort. And integrity would say, well, let's hold people accountable. But within the holding people accountable, it could cost us the victory. It can make us lose. And how many people are willing to compromise that integrity for the sake of that victory? In the grand scheme of things, how much is that one victory on that particular day or that particular week costing them in the long run? As we talk about program culture, one of the things that Mark Richt was great about, for all the arrests that happened under Mark Richt's era, for all the things that people who dislike UGA might say about Mark Richt, you know, the man seemed to have integrity. He would probably be one of those guys standing next to Dabo at the mic saying, I'll back this guy up. But again, I know that when other programs in the SEC had marijuana policies where a positive test would sit out 10% of the season or whatever, UGA had a stricter one because that was important to Mark Richt. And yet he had players miss games for rules that wouldn't have, cost a player playing time at another school. And it could and did cost him victories. But over time, Mark Richt did have a sustainable program for a couple of decades. When it comes down to what's important to me as I'm coaching, is winning the most important thing? Sure. Is the development of these athletes important to me? Hopefully. Which one's more important? It's difficult, but I hope it's the development of the men in the locker room. I hope that it's the development of the individual player. I hope it's your own development as a leader on a team. The only thing that could really compromise the development of culture, the development of players, would be to break your integrity. As soon as you make that decision that loses your integrity, you lose the ability to hold accountability. Why would a person break their integrity? From a mental health standpoint, the reason why somebody would ever act out of their integrity to take the temporary win for the potential of long-term failure or long-term struggle is for one reason alone: fear. The only reason a coach would compromise, would make a decision that could ultimately play out poorly over the rest of that season, over the rest of their career, would be because their fear caused them to solve an immediate problem. I think about how Bill Belichick, the second most winning coach in the NFL, 7-time Super Bowl champion, one of the reasons he is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, he's not in the Hall of Fame currently, was because of those times where he stepped out of his integrity. He chose the initial victory over doing it the right way. Now, there's consequences to that. And is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Absolutely. However you want to feel about how sports writers and the people who vote want to hold him accountable for Deflategate or Spygate or whatever it was. Like, you can say, well, they're just being angry. He was mean to them at press conferences or whatever. You can say all that, but it was this man who stepped out of his integrity, which did have a long-term consequence. Did he win the games? Well, 7-time champion. But this is where you have to determine, again, what is my goals? Is it player development? Is it development of culture? Is it building a sustained success over time? Or is it this Saturday's game, this Thursday's game? The only reason why you would go for that short-term game is your fear. And it's not just the fear of losing. In mental health, we would want to go deeper than that. Like, sure, yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to lose. Makes sense. But what does that loss mean? How does that translate to your nervous system and your psyche and your psychology? Is it because if I lose, I'm a failure? Is it because if I lose, it would mean that I'm not enough? If I lose, will people look at me as a disappointment? If I lose, is that unsafe because my livelihood is dedicated upon me winning these games? There's a deeper meaning when we are looking at fear. Fear itself is important. It's a great warning sign. It's like the check engine light coming up on your dashboard. There's something wrong here. But there's more information behind that check engine light that's important to know. What does this actually mean? And what am I going to do about it? When I feel anxiety, tension in my jaw, tension in my shoulders, butterflies in my stomach, fear, that's great information. But there's better information if I'm willing to dig and find it. The way that I can walk in my integrity and maintain my integrity is if I know what I'm really afraid of. What is the personal message beneath that fear? If I perform poorly in this game, what does that mean about me? How does that translate to my psychology beneath the fear? If I lose this game, if I shank this shot, if I miss this putt, if I get pinned, what will that mean about me? That's ultimately the driving force of the fear. In mental health, I work with athletes and we process those deeper meanings of fear. It's not that we necessarily want to say, well, it doesn't matter if I win or lose. It matters a lot. That fear is real. That fear matters. But oftentimes if we can talk about the meaning behind that fear, and find some understanding about the meaning of that fear, that's actually a way that the fear gets eliminated. Not because I'm okay with losing, it's just because I don't have the fear of that meaning, what it says about me to myself and to others, which then frees me up and frees my nervous system up to go out and have the best chance at actually obtaining that victory. I'm going to put in my blog a little bit of a checklist, kind of a little activity that helps you as an athlete start to try to get all right, what's beneath the fears? When I think about fear and performance, when I think about that performance anxiety that comes up, the nerves that come up when I have to perform, what is the meaning beneath that? And so there's some tools that I'll throw into the blog for you to check out. We have videos on the website and on all the social media accounts for you to check out. We are simultaneously talking to athletes. We're talking to just humans who aren't in high performance things, because the general desire of my heart is to just help. And while I love athletics, while I love my athletes, and why I get very energized helping them, any of this that applies to athletes can help and apply to anyone on any walk of life. We just want to get that content out as much as we can. My desire is to help. My desire is to bring information that can help you perform better in whatever it is that you're doing. My contact information is on my website. My email's there. I would love to connect with you. I would love to talk. If you have questions about performance, if you have questions about any element of what might be getting in your way, be it athletic performance or otherwise, shoot those questions to me. I would love to start getting a question and answer element to this where I can actually talk directly to the things that you guys are bringing to me. That's all for today. Dabo Swinney. You'll never see this, but thank you for being a man of integrity, being able to speak up and maybe be the change agent in this that saves the college football that I grew up loving because of your integrity. You're the one man who can stand and say these things. So thank you for that. Gotten a new fan because of it. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe, like, share, all those things, and we'll see you soon.